Xtalks is the industry leader in connecting life science, food, healthcare, and medical device professionals. The Xtalks Life Science podcast features insightful conversations with industry experts about all things pharma, biotech, and more.
Hello and welcome to the Xtalks Life Science podcast. I'm Vera Kovacevic, editor-in-chief at Xtalks.com, and this week I'm delighted to introduce a very special guest on the show. We have with us Dr. Ann Beliën, PhD, founder and CEO of Rejuvenate Biomed, a biotech company leveraging AI-driven platforms to develop therapies for age-related diseases and promote health aging. The company is aiming to transform the treatment landscape for diseases such as sarcopenia, neuromuscular, metabolic, and neurodegenerative disorders. Dr. Beliën founded Rejuvenate Biomed in 2017, and under her leadership, it transitioned from a discovery startup to a clinical stage biotech company. Dr. Beliën has more than 2 decades of experience in drug development that has included international assignments in the US, the Netherlands, and Belgium in various therapeutic areas, including oncology, neurology, immunology, and infectious diseases. Prior to founding Rejuvenate Biomed, Dr. Beliën served as a due diligence representative for R&D at Janssen Johnson, where she was also a member of the management board of Janssen Prevention Center for 5 years. Dr. Beliën holds a PhD from the University of Urgell in Zurich, Switzerland, and a master's degree from the Free University of Brussels in Belgium. So now to learn more about how Rejuvenate Biomed is addressing the complexities of age-related diseases, let's turn to Dr. Beliën. Thank you so much for being on the show, Dr. Beliën.
Thank you so much for having me and for a very nice introduction.
Great. So we're wondering, after your extensive career and time at Janssen and Johnson & Johnson, which was nearly 2 decades ago, can you tell us what drove you to start Rejuvenate Biomed? And can you share any goals and motivations that led you to Rejuvenate?
Sure, absolutely. So indeed, I had a wonderful time at Johnson & Johnson, and I worked there for 17 years. I enjoyed it a lot. I had wonderful colleagues and was able to learn a lot about drug development. And then in 2016, around that period, my father started to have age-related diseases, and which is always very frustrating because I'm a daddy's girl, right? And in my family, I was the only one active in the scientific field. So everybody looked at me like, help him, get him cured, right? And we noticed that each time when we were trying to deal with one disease, another disease would pop up. So it was very frustrating for me to understand what exactly was going on. And that's actually the first moment when I got acquainted with the biology of aging. Like, what happens really when we are aging, and why does this approach that we take for the younger people does not really work in the older generation? And very, very interestingly, I noticed that more than 20 years or 30 years, people have been studying the biology of aging. And we know that when we age, that our reparation systems or our damage control systems are not working optimally anymore. Like protein debris is not being cleaned out good enough anymore. DNA damage is not optimally restored anymore. And we have to take that into account when we want to do something for older people, because we need to take into account that they might react a little bit different to certain treatments, and that you also have to stabilize the base, basically. And that's how I started to be involved in the biology of aging. And then I could not really find anybody that was focusing on it in a way that it was very translational science that you can really bring to people and make a difference for patients. I've been raised that if you want something, you go for it, and you don't just complain that other people are not doing it. So that's why I decided to leave my wonderful environment at Johnson & Johnson and to establish Rejuvenate Biomed. So very, very personal drive here. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that story. Yes, I do know that a lot of scientists, they do have like a personal motivation for doing what they do. And thank you so much for sharing that with us. I wanted to ask you, so what was the transition going from a large pharma company like Janssen to founding a biotech startup? Could you share what were some of the challenges you've experienced and what were some of the more positive aspects?
Oh, absolutely. I can probably talk like hours about it, but I'll try to keep it short. Of course, I'm a scientist, right? I had a wonderful scientific idea. I went through a boot camp to see if this was also a business opportunity. But then to really start a company from scratch, that was quite an interesting experience. It took me a while before I actually decided to start a company because, of course, I was concerned. I had never done this before. I had seen people doing it and I looked at a lot of companies and I gave them some guidance. What is difference when you really have to be responsible for every element? So when I started the company, the first thing I did is like surround me with people that I really trust and that I can learn from and that can help me on a lot of different fronts. So the challenge was not on the science side, because the science I had pretty much under control, but more from the business perspective, like fundraising. Where do you start? Where do you get people interested in what you do? And are they willing to indeed do an investment, knowing that in the next 10 years they will not regain their investment, right? It was definitely one of the biggest challenges. Fortunately, I had some help there too. Um, Building a team, having the right people in the right positions, that's definitely also something that I thought a lot about. I've been extremely blessed. I have a wonderful team. They are just like me, very motivated to make a difference to patients. And it's something that you absolutely need. Also, something that you refer to, right? That a lot of scientists have that. It's because what we do is often very frustrating because we try like 100 times and 99 times it will fail, and then one time you will succeed. So to be able to have that persistence and to keep going, you need to have a very strong motivational element. So just to summarize, I would say, of course, the science has to be right. I think that that was the easy part for me. Building the team, that's definitely one of the challenges that we encountered, but very happy with the team that I have. They're amazing. And then the fundraising, which is always the difficult one.
Yeah, great. Well, it seems like you had a lot of positive outcomes, and you there. I'm sure there was a lot of lessons learned from that transition. I wanted to ask you more specifically about the missions and goals of Rejuvenate Biomed.
Yes. It is our mission. So we're very driven to keep people healthy for life. So we're not focusing on keeping people alive longer, but just to make sure that when they are alive, that they really can enjoy their life and have, as we call it, more life in their years rather than years in their life. But being able to, and it's not always big things, right? It can be small things like being able to have a social life, being able to go and visit your friends, being able to play with your grandchildren, or being able to continue to do your work. So mobility was very key. So for us, the big mission is really keeping people healthy for life, and we do that in a stepwise approach. Of course, to have that flag up there on that mountain, that's what we want. But to get there, we need to take small steps. So one of the steps that we defined was like, first we need to make sure that we have a safe compound that we can develop for an age-related disease, which is reflecting very much the biological aging process. One of these diseases is definitely sarcopenia, which we see when we age, that our muscle strength is deteriorating and that we are losing a lot of the capacities because of that. We also actually see it in other situations when we get ill. When you break a leg or you have a cast, it's not only for older people, but also younger people. They see that their strength is really going away and that you have to recover a lot later on. Now, that whole process, especially in the older people, has a lot of features in there. Like you have the neuromuscular component, so your head has to tell your leg to do something, right? So your muscle need to contract. So you need to have what we call a neuromuscular junction. Inflammation is something that you see also in the older population, which we know that older people do not react not react similar to like vaccination as younger people do. So you have to take that into account as well. So it's a very complex disease which reflects a lot the normal aging process. We also wanted, as I mentioned, that these compounds are safe because it's a new field. You want to explore, you want to understand the disease and also try to fix it. So that's why we have a little bit of different approach where we sort from compounds that have been around already for quite a while, for which we have safety information available, which we now select based on our AI platform in a way that is what we call like unpredicted or unpredictable. So the system is able to identify hidden patterns and then make sure that these hidden patterns are being identified in a way that compounds become complementary and can have an impact on this disease and then fix the disease. We have been very, very fortunate in the meantime. So we have a compound which is currently in the clinic in phase 2, where we're looking at sarcopenia in these patients. We have also other compounds in our pipeline, but that's for us like a stepwise approach. First, we go sarcopenia. We have other diseases that will be coming along as well. Sarcopenia has a regulatory trajectory, so you can develop a product for that. Aging does not have a regulatory trajectory yet, so you cannot do it there yet. So, but we keep that flag, focus on healthy aging, but take small steps to get there and reach that goal.
Yeah, and you mentioned the use of AI. I'm just curious, could you discuss a little bit more about how the AI platform is utilized? Is it mostly in the drug discovery stage?
At this moment in time, we're using it mainly in the drug discovery stage. Indeed, looking at these different compounds out there, try to understand also how they work, and then try to understand the aging process. Within the aging process, there are something called hallmarks of aging, which are describing specific mechanisms which are out of sync. For instance, like mitochondrial health. These are these little things in our cells that make the energy. We see that there is a lot of damage going on during aging at that level, but the system understands exactly how these pathways and genes that are linked to the functioning of that organelle work. Now, this AI system can now take that information, take the information of the compounds, see how it can map all that information and make sure that we have an impact on a lot of aging processes simultaneously. It can then tell us which combination would be interesting and also could tell us for which age-related disease this combination now could be interesting. It's a little bit oversimplified, of course, the way I explain it. My AI team will go like, did you really say it so simple? But it's, of course, a very, very tough and interesting field.
Great. And could you share, in your experience, what are some of the major challenges in drug development for age-related diseases?
Yes, so I think we have a couple. First of all, aging itself, there's no regulatory trajectory for it. So there's not a kind of a blueprint that you can follow to talk to the regulators about that goal. So we need to go to age-related diseases which have been recognized and for which there is a regulatory trajectory. Sarcopenia is a quite new disease, so it creates actually a lot of opportunities as well, because now you can work with the regulators and help them to identify what would be needed to show an improvement or a benefit for patients to be able to develop the compound to the next steps. That's definitely one. The other one is, of course, in clinical trial. If you want to study aging, you need to do a clinical trial, which will take like 10 years or 12 years. We, of course, do not have that time. So we need to be very creative to understand how can we study these phenomenons in a shorter study, but it's still being able to kind of translate it to a longer study. For instance, like with sarcopenia, you have acute sarcopenia and chronic sarcopenia. Chronic sarcopenia comes with age. Acute sarcopenia, whenever you're not moving, is it because of a cost or an illness? So you can study now acute sarcopenia and translate it to chronic sarcopenia. That helps. So that's how we can solve some of these challenges. Um, as I mentioned, healthy aging is extremely, extremely complex because now you're looking at so many different things simultaneously. That's where the AI has to come in, because with our normal brain, we cannot capture all that information and bring it together in a way that we can also still do something with it. So that's definitely another challenge. To be able to do that exercise well, we also need a lot of data. So the availability of data, longitudinal data, is very important. So another challenge that we try to solve in very creative ways that comes in as well. Safety. Safety is always important. You do not want to damage the patient. You only want to help them out. Safety is critical. And we solve that in our case by using products that we know well enough to understand the safety profile so that we can apply it later on in a safe way. I think that are a couple of the hurdles that we typically see in drug development.
Yeah, thank you. That was like a really, I learned a lot. Great in-depth discussion. I also wanted to ask you, so what are some trends in drug development for age-related diseases that are particularly novel and that maybe like excite you?
Yes, I think it's a growing field. So a lot of things are ongoing there. So also a lot of excitement is ongoing. Um, where we work more on the mitochondrial side of things, you can also work on other elements like senescent cells. These are the cells that were supposed to be cleaned up and were not there anymore because they were not functioning or for other reasons. They do not really get cleaned up very well. So these cells remain there and start to produce products which are disturbing their environment. Understanding more about senescence, that's definitely an interesting field, because we don't understand it well enough yet, right? Because some of them are also needed, so you cannot just clean them out all at once, because then you will be harming the body again. So a lot of knowledge is now being generated at the animal level on these approaches. Definitely interesting. The other interesting thing that we see is that there's more and more interest. People also start to understand the context better. Like, yes, you have body failure. One organ will age faster than the other organ. So we're now trying to understand how can we define which is my oldest organ and which is my partner's oldest organ. It might be different. What is the problem that he has? What is the problem that I have? And how can we fix those by using probably different products? So the personalized approach is definitely interesting. We're trying also to understand what we call so you have the biological age. That's basically what your body markers tell you, and you have the chronological age. So we're still trying to understand from a biological perspective what are the key elements that are important to not only see if I'm older than I'm supposed to be, but also what can I do specifically to turn it back, and what would be the impact on my overall functioning. So a lot of learnings are happening already at a molecular level. We don't understand everything yet on how it translates in real life, but we're definitely heading in that direction.
Great. And I know in the beginning of the show, you mentioned that when you founded the company, one of the first things that you were doing and really learning a lot about this process was assembling like a good team together. So could you share what strategies or how were you able to assemble this great team of experts to address healthy aging?
Yes, I think in our case, it was definitely location. So I'm of course based in Europe. In Europe, we do not have a lot of companies yet that are focusing on healthy aging. So one of our first hires was actually somebody that was working in the US and was very eager to return back to Europe, but really had this passion about aging. So she contacted us, and it just happened by coincidence that there was an interview which appeared in a journal. Her father actually saw it and called her and said, "You have to go and talk to this woman." So she came over. We had a very nice interaction, and we shared this passion. And that's kind of how a lot of people have ended up in our company that have been reading about us, that understood our mission, that understood that we have like three pillars, right? We have AI platform in silico and in vitro, we have preclinical, we have clinical, and then share that passion about healthy aging. Because again, what we do, I always say we do not have like normal employees. They might hear this. I'm not sure if I should say it like that, but everybody is so motivated. They have like this personal drive and commitment to go that extra mile to make sure that we can make a difference for people at the end of the road. So up till now, a lot of people have found us. Of course, we also now started to put out there that yes, we are looking for people. Yes, please contact us. But it's a lot of that motivation because you have a lot of people that are skilled, that are very, very well skilled, but you need to have that additional thing, that motivation to step into the field. Of course, my network coming from large pharma also has helped. And that's also why we have a lot of drug developers in our company, because we want to understand the science. There are a lot of very good academic settings out there which are doing basic research, but we want to do the next step, like translate. And I think we need, in this field, we need a lot. We need understanding of basic research, we need translation, but we also need drug developers. So it's a little bit of different things. And up till now, it all happened very spontaneous on how we have been growing our team.
Great. And in addition to like the amazing team that you put together, could you share if there are any partnerships or collaborations that have really helped with Rejuvenate Biomed's work?
Absolutely. I think already from the very beginning, we are always embracing collaborations because it makes you, of course, way much smarter, but it also creates a sounding board. People can challenge your thinking, they can help you think about it so that you can adjust where needed. So, one of the first collaborations was with National Institute of Aging, where we looked at aging mice. So, we had a wonderful collaboration there. We would never have been able to do all that work ourselves. We had a collaboration with University of Padova in Italy, where they had a very specific sarcopenia model. So we asked these experts in the field to actually do an experiment for us because they know how to run it. We just provided the compound. And then you also know that the interpretation of the work is absolutely correct because they are the experts. That's a little bit on the preclinical side. Then on the platform side, we have a collaboration with SAS. So SAS, as you might know, is a global company that is very known for all their statistical on, software that they provide to big pharma, but they also have a drug discovery angle to it. So we were able to collaborate with them, bringing our and their platform like faster forward. And then on clinical, we have been really, really lucky that we were selected to get an award from Welcome Leap. So we're now performing a study on sarcopenia in people that are suffering from COPD. And because of their COPD, they really have low muscle strength because they have not been able to be so mobile as they typically would be. And because of that study, because of that award, we're now doing that study together with the University of Leicester. So I think collaboration is key. You need to be completely intertwined and linked to the experts in the field. We just come in as a small company. We know that there's a lot we don't know, but you have all these wonderful people out there that you have to collaborate with. And that's the only way that you can really bring things forward. So thank you for asking.
Yeah, that was great. Like you shared a lot of great examples, and certainly there was lots of good opportunities for Rejuvenate there. And to wrap up, I wanted to ask you, this is kind of like a very general and broad question, but if you could share, what would be your vision for the future of managing and treating age-related diseases and healthy living?
My dream would be that we have something like what you have in a car, where you have all the information on your key about the car, whatever it did, how fast it has been driving, where there were problems, that we have something like that about our own body, that we can go and plug it in, talk to a doctor who can do the interpretation, and he can tell me exactly where I need to make adjustments, where my friend needs to make adjustments, to make sure that our body can function as long as possible, as good as possible. That would be something that I would envision, personalized treatment for every individual in the world.
Great. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Beliën, for being on the show today. I really appreciate your time and insights.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a real pleasure.
And that's the end of this week's episode of the Xtalks Life Science Podcast. If you like today's show, don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Bye.
To join the Xtalks community, visit xtalks.com and register for exclusive access to curated content like live webinars, news articles, and educational videos. The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers sharing them and should not be taken as professional advice, nor do they necessarily reflect the policy or position of Honeycomb Worldwide. For further information, email us at podcast@xtalks.com.